Hi. Hola.
Hi, here's Mr. Dozy.
This is Michael Bradley.
Hey, I'm Memphis.
Hey.
Hola. Hello.
I'm here with soccer.com.
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 And I'm talking with my friends soccer.com.
See you soon.
Hey guys, Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com, bringing you my first impressions plus on-feet video of the brand new Nike Magista Opus 2 in the launch colorway, which features Volt Yellow, Total Orange, and Black. Now, included with the shoes inside the box, as you'll get with all the top-end models from Nike, is a string bag. You can see it says Magista on the front with a small little Nike swoosh. It's Volt Yellow in color and then has black strings. Along with the bag, you do of course get the shoes themselves, which I have right here. This is the brand new Magista Opus 2, and it's a very interesting shoe. Very different from the first Opus and very different from the current Obra 2. So there's a lot to talk about in this video. Basically what we're going to go over is all the tech specs, the performance features of the Opus 2. We're going to take a look at the weight of the shoe as well as how they fit and feel on feet. So if you're interested in learning more about the second top-end model in the new Magista lineup, please stick around and watch the entire video. If you're interested in a pair of these for yourself, be sure to check out the review page on my website. There'll be a little pop-up on screen as well as a link in the description that'll take you directly to that page. And on that page you will find Buy It Now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes where you'll be able to pick these up below their normal $230 retail price. So again, if you're interested in a pair, little pop-up on screen, link in the description, go ahead and check it out. And with that being said, let's get right into the review. To start things off, let's go over all the tech specs of the Opus 2. Now the Magista Opus model in general, at least in the previous generation, which I have right here, the Magista Opus 1, it was probably the most, I guess, undervalued, overlooked shoe of Nike's previous generation of high-end models. And that's because it was obviously behind the shadows of the much more popular Magista Obra. But when you compare the Obra to the Opus, while they're both very good shoes, they really didn't follow similar concepts at all. They had kind of a similar look with this kind of honeycomb-like pattern with the little cutouts here. But this was Kangolite, the other one was Flyknit, and they just didn't feel the same at all. They kind of offered completely different things. Now, the reason why I'm talking about that is because with the release of the Opus 2, obviously it released alongside the Obra 2, and while the Obra 2 still definitely will be the more popular, the more sought after model of the two, unlike the difference between the Obra 1 and the Opus 1, the Obra 2 and the Opus 2, while still very, very different in terms of the elements that they have on offer, they do share similar design concepts to a certain extent, mainly in the actual texturing of the upper, and then of course the sole plate and stud patterns are the same as well. So with the Opus 2, what you have is a combination of Kangolite synthetic and Nike skin, which sounds really, really strange. So the upper that you see is Kangolite. You can see the little stamping right here on the base of the Nike swoosh. And for those that don't know what Kangolite is, it's something they used a lot more prominently in years past, but it's essentially a synthetic leather. It's supposed to mimic the feel of kangaroo leather. It doesn't feel exactly like kangaroo leather, I will say that, but it's soft, it's flexible, and it does have a remarkably natural sensation to it in terms of just comfort and touch on the ball in comparison to actual kangaroo leather. Obviously, being that it is a synthetic, it's going to be lighter, it's going to maintain its shape a little bit better, it's not going to absorb as much water, it's going to dry more quickly, it doesn't require the same maintenance. So there are some advantages to synthetic over leather, but ultimately it comes down to feel. This kind of offers the best of both worlds, but isn't quite like the sensation of actual natural leather. Now, you have that in the form of the main base for the upper, which has some decent thickness to it. In comparison to the original Opus, this definitely does have a more of a padded, kind of slightly thicker sensation, but not what I would consider to be overly thick at all. And then you have these little bumps that are pretty heavy texturing across the upper. Obviously, they're more significant in the kind of heat map zones on the actual upper, but what they've done is really, really interesting. There's actually cutouts in the Kangolite upper, and then you have a mesh base layer with a Nike skin polyurethane covering on top, and they've somehow bumped out these little dots, giving you this kind of 3D texture across the entire upper. Obviously what they've done on the Obra 2, but with Flyknit, they've done it here or replicated it using very different elements combining Kangolite, mesh, and Nike skin, which just makes for a really interesting sensation. So when you put the shoes on, it feels like a straight up Kangolite upper, which is not a bad thing at all. But when you actually push on these little dots or you feel on the inside, they're completely hollow. There are actual holes in the Kangalite upper. So you're going to get the padded sensation of the Kangalite, but then that slightly thinner, different touch when you make contact here on the texturing, which is pretty much every time. That's going to give you that kind of, I guess, feedback or feel that you wouldn't otherwise have. Really, really curious to try these out. It's obviously something that Nike really stressed in the design of the Obra 2 in terms of putting that kind of 4.5mm raised spot, the texturing to the upper in the more sensitive areas of your foot. So they've replicated that, again, using completely different elements on the Opus 2 that I think is what's going to make for a very unique experience overall. So as a whole, I'm pretty happy and pretty excited to try these out. It's a very interesting concept and it feels very good on feet. The actual dots themselves have that kind of wax-like finish, similar to what you're going to find on the Obra 2. So it will have a slightly grippier sensation on the areas with the dots versus the Kangalite, which has kind of just more of a smooth artificial leather grain finish that doesn't really have much grip to it at all. The laces run pretty much through the middle. As you can see, it's pushed ever so slightly to the medial side, and you can also see that they've implemented somewhat of a kind of one-piece or tongueless construction, if you want to call it that. It's very reminiscent of what we currently have on the Nike Tiempo Legend 6, in that the bottom 3 lace holes do use a dual lace hole system where this part of the upper can't technically come apart from itself, and then the top part of the tongue, where you have the top 3 lace holes, is kind of free and independent to move around. So that's a little bit different. It just makes for a more snug fit out of the box in terms of the forefoot and midfoot area. And I think that's a good thing overall. It makes the shoe a little bit more difficult to put on, but once they're on your foot, it has more of a snug fit. It makes for a more secure sensation in general. And I just like this idea. There's no overlapping materials in the main part of the foot that is going to be making contact with the ball. There is also a little memory foam insert here running through the middle of the tongue, which is basically made from a Kangalite synthetic material with a synthetic suede backing. ACC All Conditions Control also makes its way onto this shoe. You can see the branding right there on the top of the tongue. And again, being that this is a top-end model, they do include it as a feature, acting as your wet control element. That again, it's one of those features you get on all the top-end models, and I don't think is a make or break feature by any means. Moving on to the back of the shoe, you still have an internal heel counter just like you have with the Obra 2. Obviously, this is a low-cut model as opposed to a mid-cut shoe. Pretty much the exact same cut that we had on the original Opus, but this time around you do have a synthetic suede at the very back of the heel and then synthetic leather on the sides. I like the suede at the back. It just makes for a little bit more grip on your sock and it helps to hold everything in place really nicely. Although heel slippage is not an issue on this shoe, nor was it on the original Opus. The insole, same insole you'll get on the Magista Obra 2, mesh liner on top. Single layer of this yellow foam, and then you do have pour-on inserts here in the heel as well as in the forefoot and toe box area. So very similar to what you're going to find on the Tiempo Legend 6 as well. And on the inside of the shoe, when you do remove the insole, again, just like the Obra 2, you can see those little black dots. You can see it better on this shoe than the Obra 2. You have that in the heel as well as in the forefoot area. Hopefully you guys can see that in the video. Those are actually kind of like a grippy material that they've put on there. So the insole is not fully glued in, but it does have something to grip to on the base of the inside of the sole plate, so it's not going to slide around on you, which I think is a really, really clever idea. And again, something you will find on both the Opus 2 and the Obra 2. Moving on to the sole plate and stud pattern, this is completely the same in comparison to the Obra 2. It is a kind of compressed nylon material. It has some decent flexibility to it, a little bit stiffer than what we found on the original Obra, but still something that I think is pretty effective and feels nice and comfortable on your foot. Gets more flexible over time as well. And then the new stud pattern, which is designed around rotational traction, meaning that they want you to have that freedom to twist and pivot while still maintaining good grip. Kind of staying on your toes, being on the balls of your feet. And it does work pretty well. It doesn't feel particularly unique as far as stud patterns go, but it's effective as a firm natural grass stud pattern. And again, this is an FG stud pattern for use on only firm natural grass. So it works. There's not really too much to complain about. It doesn't feel that much different than previous Magista stud patterns, if I'm completely honest with you guys. It's a little bit lower to the ground. You have a few more studs, so I guess stability is slightly improved. It's not quite as aggressive though, but nonetheless, I don't think it's anything that anybody is going to complain about in regards to this particular shoe. The traction is pretty good based on my experience with this sole plate and stud pattern on the Obra 2. So again, the Obra 2, $300 retail, the Opus 2, $230 retail, so it does retail for $70 less. Neither one is better than the other. They just offer different things. So as far as which one you should choose, because I know a lot of people will ask which one is better, it all depends on your own personal preferences when it comes to fit and feel, because in that regard, these are two shoes that, again, while they share similar concepts with this texturing, the end result is a shoe that feels quite different. In terms of weight, I thought I'd compare the Opera 2 to the Opus 2 to see if there's any significant weight difference between them using this scale, weighing them in real time. So keep in mind that these are both the exact same size, 9.5 US, so this is a very fair comparison. We'll start off with the Opera 2, throw them on the scale, and you can see that they weigh in at 7.6 ounces, the equivalent of 215 grams. Remember those numbers. We'll change the scale back to ounces, pull these off, and we'll throw on the Opus 2, and you can see that they weigh in at 7.05 ounces, the equivalent of 200 grams. So you're talking about a weight difference of about half an ounce or 15 grams in favor of the Opus 2, which is ever so slightly lighter. The weight difference, I would say, is pretty minimal. You're not going to notice much of a weight difference on feet between these two shoes. So like I said earlier, it really does come down to what type of fit and feel that you're looking for, because they're both going to feel pretty light on your feet. Weight is not really something that I think should be a deciding factor at all. As far as the colorway and general look of the shoe is concerned, they do look different from the Opera 2, being that this is a standard low cut shoe and the Opera 2 is mid cut, but the overall design is still fairly similar. The Nike swooshes are in the same spots. You still have that heat mapping kind of graphic on this shoe, which will vary from colorway to colorway, by the way. On this being the launch colorway, you do have a base color of Volt Yellow, and then you have that Total Orange and Pink Blast kind of fading in the weather mapped areas. Now, because this isn't Flyknit, they don't have control of every single square millimeter of what color it should be. So instead, they've implemented some kind of a graphic here over top of the Volt Yellow base to give it the orange and pink coloring, and then the actual little dots that poke through the upper covered in clear Nike skin where the mesh is actually orange. So all the dots are orange in color, and it all kind of blends in really interestingly as far as how those dots look on the shoe, because it is very evident that they've been kind of put on the shoe, whereas on the Opera 2 it kind of just looks like it's part of the upper. I don't know, everyone's gonna have their own opinion on it. I don't necessarily think that it looks bad, but again, leave your opinion down below in the comment section. Black Nike swoosh on either side. You have the kind of teal turquoise color in the heel liner, as well as here faded to the back of the heel, the Magista branding in black, and then the sole plate, as you can see, is Volt Yellow in color with clear and orange studs. So let me know what you guys think of these down below in the comment section. Do you like how they look? Why or why not? And with that being said, let's move on to the on-feet portion of the video so we can get a better idea as to how these shoes fit and, of course, what the sizing is like. All right, so here is a look at the Magista Opus 2s on feet. On my left foot, I have the stock Volt Yellow laces that come with the shoes, and on my right foot, I have a pair of Orange Punch reflective SR4U replacement laces. If you're interested in a pair of replacement laces for yourself, the website to go to is www.sr4ulaces.com. There'll be a little pop-up on screen and a link in the description that'll take you directly there. So again, if you're interested in a pair, go ahead and check it out. Now, in terms of how these things fit and feel on feet, they are actually very comfortable from right out of the box. Obviously, unlike the Opera 2, these are not Flyknit. It's a Kangolite upper. The Kangolite does have a leather-like sensation to a certain extent. It's not quite as padded, but they still feel very comfortable on your feet. In comparison to the original Opus, this definitely does have a slightly thicker feel. It's not quite as flexible out of the box just because the upper doesn't have the same number of cutouts, but it still feels very comfortable. There's really not too much to break in regards to just the way these things feel on your feet. The heel lockdown is very good. And overall, in terms of fit, it's a wider shoe. You do have the one-piece or partial one-piece construction for the bottom three lace holes, so putting them on is a little bit tighter. It reminds me a lot of the Nike Tiempo Legend 6 in that regard. But like I said, they are very comfortable from right out of the box. It'll soften up and become more flexible as you wear them, but for the most part, you shouldn't have too many issues as far as discomfort is concerned for the first couple of wears. In regards to width, again, in comparison to the original Opus, it definitely does have a wider fit overall, especially through the forefoot and toe box area. The midfoot is a little bit snug just because of the one-piece design, but not to the point where I would consider these to be narrow or anything like that. And the general shape of the shoe is very similar to that of the Opera 2, which again, is to be expected across the entire Magista line. They all will have a very similar shape to them overall. As far as sizing is concerned, I'm wearing my usual size 9.5 US, which is what I've been wearing in the Magista line since it first came out. It runs about a half size small. So if you're coming from previous Magista models, I would recommend sticking with the same size. And if you're coming from most other shoe lines, I would recommend going a half size up in order to achieve the best possible fit. And width-wise, I really feel like these will fit most people. If you have really, really wide feet, probably not the best idea, but like I said, for most people, I don't think you're gonna have any issues with these. All right, guys, that is it for my review of the brand new Nike Magista Opus 2. Expect to see a lot more follow-up content on this shoe as well as the rest of the new Magista line in the very near future on this channel. If you guys are interested in a pair of these for yourself, go ahead and check out the review page on my website. You can go ahead and either click the I in the corner or click the link in the description. It'll take you directly to the review page where you will find Buy It Now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes where you'll be able to pick these guys up below their normal $230 retail price. So again, if you're interested in a pair, go ahead and check it out, link in the description. If you have any questions at all regarding this shoe, leave them down below in the comments and I definitely will get an answer out to you. If you enjoyed today's video, found it helpful and informative, be sure to support it with a like. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information linked in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. And as always, thanks for watching.